Throughout these last 4 months of the pandemic, we've seen that regardless of what is happening in the world, life continues to go on and we continue to work. Our workplaces have been evolving and adapting to the times of a pandemic. Whether you're a frontline worker like our Walmart associates or an essential worker or now a remote worker, going to work is a different routine than it used to be. We're embracing a new level of innovation and productions, whether it be adding plexiglass barriers and sanitation stations, or in Zoom meetings, failing to stop our kids from running in the background or our dogs barking. Today, our panelists represent 3 different areas of work: the media industry, the food services industry, and HR or people. Our guests are Daniel Sakaya from Crossings TV, Jae Hong Huang from the front lines of Sodexo, and Clifford Yee from Coro, Northern California. Okay, let's hear from Daniel Sakaya from Crossings TV. Daniel?
Sure. My name is Daniel Sakaya, and I'm the president / COO of Crossings TV.
Thank you so much. So a couple of questions. One, how have you protected your frontline workers?
So really, for us, we're a media station. We, have a series of, TV channels around the country catering to Asian American audiences. And so a lot of our frontline workers end up being both our producers that are out there. And so they'll be, whether they're producing, segments or stories for some of the news content that we produce, or whether they be, being producing commercials for clients, or in this case with, COVID, a lot of different public service announcements, a lot of PSAs, needing production at this time for different organizations. So that's one set of those frontline workers that we have. And the other would be our channel operators, just simply because they really have to be in the office. They can't transition, remotely, or couldn't, I should say, before remotely so easily, to work from home because, all of our equipment, and you can imagine, the complexity of the amount of equipment and setup and engineering that you need, to run multiple channels out of one facility, and send those signals out. So, with that said, it was really a matter of a few different things as we talk about, these specific groups, being the ones the most at risk. So the first was to really, try to move everything as remotely as possible. And I think that's kind of probably the given and what everybody was trying to do out there. And so with our channel operators, we did start moving to, things online, to a lot of remote operations digitally. That was a little bit of a challenge at first, but I feel that we were able to make that transition, within a couple of weeks, which is, I think, pretty impressive for us. We didn't anticipate we could do it that quickly. And then for a production, it was really about, sitting down and minimizing the amount of production that would need to be done physically. And so we had to have, discussions and, make decisions and develop a kind of a thinking, framework for decision making for our producers to really think through, what actually needed to be done, out in the field versus what needed to be done, what could be done remotely. And we actually found that a lot of things that maybe initially we wouldn't have thought about doing remotely, we did. A lot of, story segments, interview segments that we did, we moved to Zoom, to do those. We had a director, that was directing all of that, through Zoom. So a lot of adapting there, but those are some of the things, that we really, put in place in order to, protect our frontline workers.
Thank you. And so a lot of businesses have been opening and closing back up. I know you said that you kind of at the beginning just moved a lot of things to be remote. But how have you been handling the unpredictability of things closing and opening? Has it affected you guys? And if so, how?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing is we have to sit down, as both a management group, as well as solicit that feedback and input from our staff, who tends to be out there in connection with some of those businesses, and think about all of the different dimensions that could impact us. Now, the biggest certainly is that being a television station, we are our revenue is advertising based, so that relies heavily on advertising dollars, on people essentially paying to put commercial spots on air during our programs. And so you can imagine, with a lot of those businesses closing, a lot of people just pulled back on those budgets and things like that. So we had to do a lot of thinking around how we would anticipate some of those things happening, how we'd adapt to it. And then certainly all the way to as we started to make this transition, we thought about just even getting equipment to transition remotely and what might be available. I know initially, when everything went to a frenzy, and while a lot of people were talking about toilet paper running out, hand sanitizer still being difficult to get today, we were thinking about those things, certainly for our staff, but we were already thinking about webcams and things like that, and other computer equipment that we might need to set up remotely. And that had a lot to do with what kind of businesses were going to open and close, how manufacturing, pipelines, were going to happen, with some of these different products and equipments that we need. So, really, I think the solution for us was to, really take a conservative measure. I believe we're a little bit early in that, we started to have these discussions as early as February, and a lot of those, shelter in place orders didn't come into place until maybe mid or late March, if I recall correctly. But we started to have those conversations early, to really try to anticipate this impact. And we kind of worked off the assumption that, things just were going to close, and they were going to close, and they were going to stay closed. I think at the time, a lot of people, and the sort of general thinking was that things would reopen back up, in a couple months, which they did for some time. And now, they're kind of shutting down again. But we just anticipated everything was going to, stay closed through the rest of the year. So we took a lot of conservative measures, to protect ourselves, financially, and also, started to invest quickly in a lot of those things. And whether it be PPE, for some of our staff members, or that equipment I mentioned, to set up remotely, as fast as we could, so that we wouldn't run into those issues down the line.
Thanks so much. I think it's super refreshing to hear about companies taking proactive measures rather than reactive. So yeah, thanks for sharing. And what types of policies are you putting in place to protect your workers?
So as I mentioned, just as you kind of reflected back, we did get on this early. So, we, as early as, late February, early March, we're putting our first policies in place. And the first thing was, obviously, our staff, safety was first and foremost. We had a lot of discussions about that. And so I think for us, we didn't see it. I think what was particularly non-reactive about us is that we didn't see this as a temporary fix or something that we just kind of needed to get through, but we saw it as kind of challenging some of the deeper values of how we were managing, how we were setting up policies, and things. And this was really an opportunity to really emphasize to our staff how important their safety and their well-being is for us. So, the first policy that we really put into place was, where we limited any kind of external engagements. And we really, asked all staff to really try to eliminate those completely. We started to get into a lot of discussions and a lot of training on, how to try to convert those kind of requests into, a remote, a virtual type of meeting and things like that. We spent a lot of time, probably, I think at least, a couple hours every week. We check in with staff, have different group meetings, and just get feedback from them on what kind of pressures they're facing out there. And so that kind of resulted in us seeing that, we needed a policy in place to limit those and to only, to really take them on a case-by-case basis and have a discussion about every single meeting that was being requested, every single event, that they may have been thinking about attending, whether it was a gala, networking event, or even just, a meeting with somebody at a restaurant. And then we also, took measures to, put in policies to limit the use of our office space. So we really, wanted to emphasize physical distancing early. And so we limited, to only one person. We're a smaller company, so we're able to do that. We have that luxury, to be able to have that kind of flexibility. But we limited to just one person in the office at any time, and we made that again, on an authorization basis only, where they would check with us, and so we can manage, the foot traffic in and out of the office, because we still needed people going in there, periodically to check on equipment, process, some things that were coming in, physically into the office. So we did that. And so, since then, we have never had more than one employee at the office at any given time. We do try to create, lapses of time between, another individual coming in there. And then we set up, sanitation protocol, safety protocols, like a lot of companies have done, and really, took time to discuss those thoroughly, with anybody going into the office, and making sure that they were taking the proper precautions, today wearing masks, sanitizing, any surfaces they're touching, things like that.
All right, thank you. And I think those are the questions that we had ready. And then I have a couple, Tu has an audience question too. So we're curious about what compelled you and Crossings to have conversations that this might last through the end of the year, an insight that many organizations are still reckoning with now in August.
Well, I think we kind of we looked at the situation, and to be honest, I kind of have the benefit. My wife, she works in healthcare. She's a physician, and so I was kind of at a time, I think, where a lot of, and like today, a lot of the information is still coming mostly through the media and things like that. I was getting a lot of inside information from her about how physicians and how healthcare was really talking about this. And so I was really trying to forewarn people early on about the reality of what was happening inside healthcare systems, what they were seeing. And because of that, I think we sat down and we sort of brought in this kind of healthcare perspective. We really try to think through a sort of social, psycho-emotional perspective of just society and our staff and how people are going to be faring through it, and also an economic impact and what that might look like. And for us, we just concluded that we thought most likely things were not really going to be able to reopen through the year, but even if they did, it wouldn't really benefit us to really count on that, and that we really needed to prepare for, things just not opening up at all. So it was a combination of not only kind of leaning in that direction, but also, seeing that there really wasn't much benefit to us to try to think otherwise and take that bet, because there was definitely, not a whole lot of payoff to that bet for us, and obviously a lot of risk and a lot of costs. Should we have been expecting things to reopen? Should we have, been lighter on some of these, health and safety measures with our staff?
Okay, and so I have a question about, so since everything is remote, and when you have people at the office, it's only like one or two people at a time. How has that changed in like the community culture, like the workspace, like the community? How has that changed, and how have you been able to like increase that type of morale?
Oh, it's a good question. I think part of it wasn't easy. I think for a lot of people, a lot of companies experience this, and certainly there was a transition period where people could feel isolated. It was a result of having to work remotely, but a lot of people, we kind of, as we were anticipating this early, we knew that a lot of the impact was just kind of psycho-emotionally what our staff was going to be going through as individuals, and that everybody was going to hit kind of a wall at some point where it was all going to kind of hit them, and they were going to maybe need to take a few days off, or need some help, or need to kind of talk through some things. So we knew a lot of that was what we were kind of managing to, through this transition. I think like a lot of folks are doing out there, we really try to reach out, urge managers to, communicate more than less. So whereas maybe you were checking in with somebody, once or twice a week, try to check in with them, at least 3 or 4 times a week now, have conversations, have kind of, non-formal, informal, casual get-togethers, just get on a call sometimes just to talk, get a meeting together with, we did that. We put a company-wide meeting on Zoom, and we did not have any specific topic. It was just for everybody to see each other's faces, just kind of relax, joke around for an hour, let some of the tension, out, of the things that were happening, and also sharing, some of their own personal things. So a lot of that was, creating a space for people to not just talk about work, but talk about what they were seeing personally, as far as COVID and, how it's impacting their families, their communities, things like that. So, I think a lot of that connection was key, continues to be key for us, something that we really, try to manage too closely. But also say, with remote transition, a lot of the challenges, you have people that adapt well to it, and you have, people that actually are super hardworking and struggle to, find the lines between work and personal space. And so we had to talk through we're blessed of having really hardworking individuals. And that was some of the discussions we had was, how to kind of turn off that computer at 5, 6 p.m., whenever that was in the day for you, and just walk away from it and not keep checking back, not just sitting on your desk, not working, on and off, through the day, from the time you wake up until the time you go to bed. So that's a lot of the transition too. And to be honest, it's something that we still continue to manage to, and it's something that we still, every week as a management team, we check in on with each other.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think something I've heard a lot is people not just like working from home, but like homing from work. So it's great that you encourage the culture of, like, at 5, turn off your computer. And we have another question. Have you been able to develop new work protocols or standards for crossings that you think you'll keep post-COVID?
Oh, yeah, certainly. I think, what in operations, I mentioned channel operations, learning how much we can do remotely. I would say probably most of that will stay after COVID. We do want to move to something more remote, and we may end up in a place where we just don't even have a physical office anymore. That's a possibility that we're exploring. So certainly, that kind of system, is something that has worked out really well for us. And I think, just as I mentioned, just having these kind of casual check-ins is something that I think, we appreciate now more than ever. And, we've talked about, we actually had this very question on a staff meeting where we asked everybody, what are some of the things that you're doing, that you think will stick, after COVID? And that was one of the things, and people said, hey, sometimes I got on that sales call, sometimes I got on that programming call, and we're just jumping right to business. And now it seems like people kind of take a couple minutes and really check in and, hey, how's the family? Are you guys safe? And spend maybe 5-10 minutes just having a personal conversation, just taking a moment to connect. And they said that's something that they want to preserve, in their workflows post-COVID. And then certainly we as an organization want to preserve that with our staff externally, but with our staff as well, and make sure that we, schedule every now and then an hour to, just, have a chat, share some stories, play a game, something like that, because, definitely now more than ever, I think we're all learning how important those things are.
All right. And I just have one more question about production. So you've said that it's been a challenge to produce a lot of things remotely, but you guys have like adjusted a lot. Where do you, and this is kind of a vague, broad question, so let me know if you think it's hard to answer because there's a lot that's unknown. Where do you kind of see the future of media going in the next like year? Because I think it's kind of exciting that we have more opportunities with a lot of things being virtual. Like, what's something exciting that's changing? Like
Well,
something
I
that you're
think
in the future.
certainly a big question. I think we're seeing some interesting things out there. So I'll kind of point, some of the trends that I think, are that we may see something come out of. So I think in terms of just even content creation, right? I know in Hollywood, they're starting to take some measures where they're minimizing, romantic scenes, right? Physical, distancing being at play there, and things like that. So they're even saying that, a lot of this can change the narrative or the type of stories, right, that we see coming out. Certainly for, I think, for news and for some local content, for TV content, I think there's an opportunity right now because, before COVID, there was, whether you're watching like, maybe a late night show, a Tonight Show on a big NBC or CBS or something like that, versus, some 25-year-old guy, doing some kind of live stream show out of his, room, right? It seemed like a huge gap in production, right? In production quality, production resources, and things like that. But I think because now we all have to do that, and we're even seeing that happen with the Jimmy Kimmels and Jimmy Fallons and stuff like that. There's much higher tolerance, right now for you to do these things remotely. So I do see a lot of talents being able to surge up through this, both because there is a tolerance for less production resources being put into a production today, and maybe that means that the actual quality of the content starts to become a little bit more dominant over time, right? But also because people are consuming that much more content today, right? So I think that is happening now through COVID. People are watching a lot of stuff, right? And that's, viewership, TV viewership has really gone up drastically, as we can all imagine. Will that be something that will stay after COVID? I actually do believe, because that trend was already kind of on the uprise. And I think one of the things that we do anticipate is that, yes, when everything opens up, it's not like an on and off switch. There will take some time. People are still going to be a little bit resistant and hesitant to, not all people, but some people, a lot of people I think will be resistant and hesitant to jumping on that plane to go on vacation, going out to dinner, getting, 20 people together at the houses and things like that. So you're still going to see, a TV viewing on the rise. So I do think, it is a big time for television. We see a lot of big streaming services coming out, and kind of fighting Netflix and Amazon Prime and Comcast and NBC just came out with their Peacock service, and and others continue to come out with things like that. But at the same time, as far as us and OCA and the Asian American market, I do think the most important thing I will say is that it is a very difficult time for minority television out there, simply because most of the the stations that we know out there that are running in language news, in language dramas, content for these Asian audiences. They're really highly dependent on local business, on advertising dollars from, as you can imagine, your local furniture stores, law firms, dental offices, and things like that. And, obviously that's taken a huge impact now. Those businesses, some of them closing, some of them, just whether temporarily or permanently, but certainly, killing their advertising budgets, their promotional budgets. I think, unfortunately, it is one of the things that we will also see is we're going to come out of this seeing, less, minority media, standing at the end of the day, which is going to be a very unfortunate thing, for our market, for all of us.
All right, and I think that's all the questions we had for you.
Okay.
Daniel, thank you so much for being a speaker and for taking the time out of your day to give us your insight and to speak with us.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate you guys taking the time, to hear what I had to say, on this topic.
Now we'll hear from Jae Hong Huang from the front lines of Sodexo.
Hi, my name is Jae Huang, and I'm the Director of Food and Nutrition Services at Amherst Hospital in New York City. we were the epicenter during the pandemic in the past 4 months.
All right. And how have you protected your frontline workers over the past 4 months?
As a basic standard, every coworker, they receive the PPE, and we kind of educate them how to use the PPE correctly and properly to protect themselves. Which is, we also take a temperature of each employee when they report to work, or when they go up to the unit to deliver the tray or visit the patient. When they come back, we take the temperature again. To me, the physical safety is important, but on the other hand, the mental health are also our concern, because a lot of employees, they heard about a lot of news and they get like anxious, they're depressed. So as a director in the department, I try to be there every day and to talk to the staff, and then to encourage them and provide them the more correct information, how to protect themselves. So make sure they feel safe to work in the hospital. And also, I get the opportunity to talk to their loved one, their family, because they also have a concern. How do we provide the PPE to protect their loved ones? So one thing is I just try to make them mentally strong and health as well.
Thank you so much. And I think that's great to hear about just the holistic, caring about their health like holistically. So besides like the PPE and the physical and the mental ways that you're supporting them, what types of policies are you putting in place to also protect your workers?
Regarding the policy, because some of the PPE, we don't really use it in the normal circumstances when we deliver the isolation tray, because the nurse on the unit, they actually will receive the tray and provide to the patient in the isolation room. But during the pandemic, and almost every unit, it become an isolation unit. So the staff started, using the N95. So we have been trained the staff how to use the N95. So the policy will change to certain PPE, we haven't used before. And so that's one thing. The other thing is from Sodexo, we order a special infection detergent. So we make sure all the food truck, you go into the unit, when they come back, they could be deeply disinfected. And also, we used to use a reusable container and dishes and utensil. And during this time, the entire hospital, we were using disposable container and utensil. And talking about the other service we provide, because we have a dietitian, and we also have like a patient ambassador. We carry the iPad, go to each patient, ask what they like for the next day, and we can make a selection for them. But during the pandemic, we try to save the PPE for the doctors and nurses. So we did not use that. Instead, we use a virtual. We call the patient and call on their cell phone, and we talk to them. One thing we have been doing extra is the navigator, that's the ambassador, who will spend a little bit more time to chat with the patient, like calling them, hey, how do you feel today? Do you need anything special? And then just how do you feel? And then kind of give them some, you'll be doing better. We have a good doctor, nurses to take care of you. So we kind of try to encourage the patient. So because they're all isolated, and hopefully we have provide some personal touch to make them feel comfortable and make them calm to get the treatment well in the hospital. So we have done that virtual connection with the patient and try to help them to feel comfortable in the hospital. It's not like, because we also limit the visitor to see the patient to prevent the spread out the COVID-19. So basically, that's the way we do it. And so that's a little bit change we have on our policies.
So there are some companies who struggled with getting the supplies that they need. So I guess with the food, some people that were getting them more like internationally are now getting their supplies like domestically or from different suppliers instead. Is that something you guys are working on or struggled with?
Actually, we did not have a struggle on that. One thing I think Sodexo was well prepared for the COVID-19. Actually, I could get, you remember I mentioned about disposable utensil and the container. We actually keep a lot of container, disposal container and disposal utensil in the facility. Like when we hear the wave start coming up, and then we have keeping a lot of in the unit already. And also the supply, the food supply, we did not have any problem to receive any kind of food, so even like tube feeding products, because a lot of patients on ventilator, and so they end up, need to use the tube feeding. And the vendor we're using, they team up with the Sodexo, so actually, we did not have any difficulty to get those tube feeding products as well.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm also interested to hear more about how you guys have been supporting your frontline workers, like mentally. You mentioned that you go and check up on them. What are some other practices that you guys have been putting to keep morale up and just remind them that you're there to support them?
Yeah, well, actually, we provide special breakfast, lunch, tea time, and snack through the day, and try to do different things to spend more time with them. And also, Sodexo website provide a lot of COVID information, besides the physically education, but also mentally, how to practice, like, how to use meditation, stuff like that, to ease your anxiety and your depression, stuff like that. So I share those information with the staff. And also we team up with the Amherst Hospital mental health department. So many doctors and psychiatrists, they are very nice. We call the program here, we call Help Heal the Healer. So it's 3H program. So they were very nice. They come to the department, they could break down the small group, and they even had the one-on-one counseling with my staff. So we really get a lot of support on the mental health part. So we actually, get a lot of support. And besides that, I want to say one thing, especially in New York City, every 7 p.m., everybody, applaud the, healthcare worker. So sometimes at 7 p.m., you go outside the hospital in the street. We have seen the fire truck to come over. We have seen people bringing the food over, and so many support from New York City, and just make you feel so proud of it. And I always at 7 p.m. I release the staff go to the street and then listen to how people appreciate what you have done. So that's something we try to make everybody mentally strong.
Yeah, I love to hear that the community is kind of coming together to support.
Yes, that's really amazing. I sometimes you just, I am sorry to say that twice, because within that 4 months, I only took 2 days off. And when I walk out, and sometimes you just feel like you heard some of the patient, pass away, and just really sad. But whenever you hear that, they give you applause, and the tears just came out, for no reason. Yes.
And how do you, I guess this kind of goes along with it, but how do you keep going? How do you encourage your workers when and a lot of us face really feel like there's really no end to this, like it'll keep going? How do you help them to continue on?
Well, I think, we have been through like the first wave, and a lot of people are talking about their second wave coming over. So we continue to emphasize, like, how to do the best practice, wash your hand, keep distance, wear mask, take the temperature, and all the precaution. So, from this side, we kind of keep everybody, get used to it, familiar with it. And on the other side, on the mentally health part, we try to say, this is like other virus or bacteria is going to kind of live with us. So we got to be, strong and facing it, and just continue what we can do every day and enjoy the moment we have, and just do the best practice. And I hope that when we do the weekly meeting, I actually told my staff, whatever they learn from the hospital, from Sodexo information, they should share that with their family member. So they could be also a good trainer and educator to their family member as well. So kind of like let's all work together and to prevent the second wave to come back.
And then I don't know if I think New York is in stage 4 or phase 4, right? Or has been.
Yeah, New York City right now just coming to phase 4. Yes.
Okay, and so did you guys go through like periods of things closing and reopening, or was New York pretty much a little more consistent?
Yeah, actually, I think, because the opening, closing is mainly we follow the mayor's office guideline and governance guideline. But at the meantime, we kind of continue to practice the safety protocol, which is a hospital provide us, and just, make sure we all working in a safe environment, and then we all be safe to go home to take care of our family as well. I think again, we practice hand wash, constantly, and wear the mask, keep distance.
My last question is, what are you most proud of and how your company has responded to COVID?
I think the most proud of it is I think Sodexo really give us a good guideline and preparation. So we do have a good plan and to keep extra stock in house. So to prevent, we ran out. And the other thing, I appreciate it, because Sodexo is a different division. So we are in the healthcare division, and we also have the other manager working at a different division. So after we, saying that, we need help, and everybody kind of chip in. So I got the manager from the JFK airport, and also Sodexo use our local temp agency. So they are all trained food service worker. So we did not have, trouble to running like really, really short of labor. So we were able to continue to provide the service to our patient. The other part, I think, been through this, the one thing I feel very proud is I will be I was at the front line to support my staff, my family, my staff family, and the patient. Personally, I even have the, because at the later time, I stay late, and then some patient that need a tube feeding product, and I just put out all my PPE and just go out there to deliver. And you just feel like, I'm here to save lives, to help people, and to make people feel calm and safe and comfortable. So I think that's something made me very proud of my company, my hospital, and myself, my team, everybody here. And we will try our best to help others. And really, really so proud I get the teamwork, put everything together, and that's really amazing.
Thank you so much. And another question, are there any policies that you think that you'll keep after COVID-19?
I'm sorry, what's the question again?
Oh, are there any like new policies that you guys have put in place that you think you'll keep even after COVID-19?
Yes, I think right now the hospital, we actually participate the task force for the COVID-19. So we are going to look at it, is any policy like we could get the help faster, and how are we going to prevent the wave to come back, what kind of PPE we need to keep in-house, stuff like that. And we adding more education on the coronavirus awareness kind of a policy and safety protocol to our staff. So that's some policy, we will continue to use it and maybe make some modification to meet all the safety concern.
All right, and last question. What's the biggest lesson you've learned from the past 3 months with dealing with this that you would like to share with everyone, our audience?
I'm a Boy Scout leader, so I really think one thing the Boy Scout motto is, be prepared. So the thing is, I think a good thing is we really make a good prepare in the food and nutrition services department. So we could make things continue smoothly without interrupt, without delay, and meet the patient's needs, either as oral nutrition provide or tube feeding supplement. And that's something I really think be prepared is important. And also you really need to look at the bright side, because this is really a challenge on your mentally health. So got to be continue with your colleague, with your team, and then just encourage each other to help each other. And I really appreciate the hospital mental health department has been provide that to talk to us and help us to mentally strong. And so I really appreciate that. So that's what thing, I think I learned a lot, from this time.
Well, thank you for being here, Jay, and sharing your experience.
You're welcome.
Let's hear from Clifford Yee from Coro, Northern California.
So hi everyone, my name is Cliff Yee and I am the Senior Director of Programs at Coro Northern California, which is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization focused on redefining leadership. And our mission is to train, support, and connect leaders to foster a thriving democracy and tackle society's biggest challenges together. As far as myself and my background, I was a OCA college alum from 2001, in the summer of 2001. So shout out to the OCA alumni out there. I've been involved with OCA pretty much since then and have played a variety of roles, serving on the executive council as their national vice president of chapter development. I've been past chapter president of the San Francisco chapter. And as far as me professionally, what I do is I essentially facilitate leadership trainings to a variety of audiences. And we tackle issues from a wide range of issues, from human trafficking to addressing the pipeline of civic leaders, to trying to build up youth civic engagement and things similar to that. For me personally, I am also a volunteer on a variety of boards right now, including the local Richmond Neighborhood Center, which is the Richmond district in San Francisco that I live in. I serve on my child's elementary school parent-teacher organization. Personally, I got 2 kids, a 6-year-old and 2-year-old, and my partner also graduated and is an alum from the OCA internship program, though we did not meet there.
So just to start off, what are some of the good ways you've seen companies support their working parents, and how do you see this continuing into the fall as schools partially open?
I'm really lucky at Coro Northern California. we responded pretty quickly to the shelter-in-place guidelines here in San Francisco. I believe the shelter-in-place happened around March 14th, 15th, around there. And we already a week prior to that gave all the staff, there's 11 of us on the team, so we're a smaller nonprofit, gave all the staff the option to work from home that whole week, which I have been working from home since then, since I guess early March. And as we all sort of navigate the challenges of how do you balance working from home while caring for different people, in my case was caring for a 6-year-old and 2-year-old. It was just really challenging, and luckily for my work at Coro, there was this understanding of like, do what you need to do first at home, and we'll worry about everything else later. And so that meant that different trainings that we had scheduled, we postponed them, given that they were going to be in the physical space. So we put a hold on some of our in-person programming as we figured out adapting to the virtual space and being really well versed in Zoom, as I'm sure some of you all are now. And so since then, we've adapted all of our in-person programming to the virtual space. We've been able to talk to the various trainers, essentially the facilitators on staff, to figure out what schedule works best for you, and then to be able to share that with the participants that we had on our various programs. That also meant modifying what would have been an 8-hour in-person training to the virtual space and making it be potentially 4 hours, and making sure that there was breaks every hour, just so people were not sitting in front of the screen their whole time, and understanding people have different things they need to take care of beyond the screen. So it allowed for myself and my partner to figure out a schedule that worked for us, to be able to share that with our employers. She's also a nonprofit, and to make sure that if things didn't get done, that's okay. That first and foremost is take care of our health and the health of the people that we're being responsible for. And so some other strategies that have happened, because we've now been in this since March, we have first we used to have every morning, each weekday, we would have like a 15-30 minute huddle with all the teams, and then we would reassess. And now we're doing it Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. We've had really hard conversations at the organization to really just ask the question of how can we show up as our best selves right now? What does that look like? What do we need? And so from an organization, how we've responded is specifically during the summer, we have every other Fridays off. So we're doing a 4-day work week every other week. We have 1 full week off in August, which happens to align with the week prior to the San Francisco Unified School District starting off. And so we call that Rejuvenation Week. Our organization and the leadership has given each staff member a wellness stipend of $100 added to each paycheck. And so that way we can figure out what do we need that for, whether we need it to like pay for an app to help with wellness, or however you define wellness for you, but to make sure that you feel that you have that additional financial support that you need to take care of what you need to take care of. And because we're going to continue down this road into the fall, and locally the school districts here are also continuing with distance learning. We're also giving each of the team members $1,500 to upgrade your equipment at home, essentially to upgrade your home office. So what that means is doing a technology upgrade if needed, having the right like desk or like ergonomics, like for you at home. In the beginning, I was sitting on my couch. Now I'm sitting on a stool, and my laptop is literally on my daughter's dresser, because that's my setup. And so And then my computer is, I don't know, like a 2015 MacBook Air. And so if I'm trying to do Zoom, usually after I do 5 days of training straight, my computer no longer likes me. So we've tried to accommodate a lot of different ways. And particularly for the working parents, and anyone that has that is a caretaker, not necessarily someone that has kids, we're examining what that looks like in the fall, particularly as we start with distance learning. We were very fortunate that our 2-year-old, we decided to take on the challenge of potty training my 2-year-old during the pandemic, because hey, you're at home all the time. What better way than to try to potty train a 2-year-old, which I don't know if I would advise, but it was a long 2-3 month process. But thankfully, he started preschool about 3 weeks ago, and that has provided much needed normalcy to our workday, where my 6-year-old is doing a virtual summer camp, which occupies her between 1 to 2 hours of her time a day, and the rest of the time she really does whatever she wants because we're busy in meetings and trainings and other work related things. And so we're still discussing as a staff what this looks like in the fall, but there is a general understanding of like, take care of what you need to do. Any of our external meetings or trainings, we have the ability and ownership to really set that schedule for ourselves and to figure out what works best for our situation.
Wow, that's incredible that your workplace is like super supportive in doing all of that. I wish like everyone could have this, but I know people are like they're implementing like bits and pieces of what Coro has done, but that's super awesome. And I think the whole like parenting thing is or actually you put it a better way is like if you're just a caregiver in general. But how have you been like managing roles around the house, and like do you have any advice for other like working parents out there and managing like the workspace around the house?
Yeah. So what I'll say around, like when we first started the shelter in place, we set up a calendar, and we set up a daily calendar, mostly Monday through Friday. Imagine a poster paper for people that use poster papers with a bunch of sticky notes, with grids that are blocked off by the hour, and we would try to create a schedule. And we were really good with that for maybe the first month. And then as time moves on, and as work starts to pick up a little bit, or this new sense of the new normal starts to pick up a little bit, my partner and I, we definitely we did not uphold that schedule as much as I think we would have liked to. But I think for like working parents and caregivers out there, I do think it's really important to have an honest conversation around what the needs are at the home. And this is sort of like an opportunity to improve your communications with each other and what your needs are. What I always say is to make the implicit explicit, to like externally process, which is so important right now, particularly as we're in the virtual space, to externally process. So it helps guide the person in our thinking and our rationale. And so we would have those conversations around like, what do we need? What's your schedule? Let's plan for the following week. What are times that like whether I'm in training and just I really can't do much because I'm essentially holding space for other people in their learning and their leadership development. And when Elaine's in her meeting, she's in affordable housing in San Francisco, and you can imagine just the impact COVID-19 has had on the unhoused population. And so when she's on calls, a lot of her calls are just like really high priority around what to do with buildings that are in construction, what to do with affordable homes that are not yet filled, and there's a bunch of applications, what to do around just making sure that their tenants and the small business owners, where are they at with their PPPs, and if they can pay, or if they can't pay on any given month. So we are there's a lot of challenging times with our schedules right now, and the more that we can be just so open and honest and explicit about what we need, and what needs to get done for our kids and our families, is so important. And so what that means is also like communicating with our employer, and being honest of like, if we need to rotate who's doing the drop off and pickups for my 2-year-old at preschool, if there's times where my 6-year-old has let's say an assignment, or for her virtual summer camp, that like, let's just calendar everything out and figure out where the gaps are and how do we address that. And if that means that we need to ask for more flexibility or accommodations from our employer, that both of our employers are in a place that have been receptive to those requests. But what it also means is right now, like it's everything is blended. This concept of professional and personal lives is blended in this virtual space, where you are literally looking into my home right now during this conversation. And that's just something that's new, that all of us have to have grace with each other, and how we're navigating this time. It's so important that there's that personal professional balance. And so that means if I'm going to be on a meeting, like, let me stop my video so I can cook lunch for the family, or cook dinner and things like that. And once again, it's just really helpful to be explicit. So if I'm in a meeting, I'll say like, all right, I'm going to turn my video off because I need to, handle something with the family right now, or I need to cook or do something. Or when we were potty training my 2-year-old, is like, I'm just going to have my video off today, just so you know, because I'm potty training my kid in the background and no one needs to see that. And so that's some advice that I have for folks that are out there.
That's awesome. Like, I really appreciate like your tidbits, because I think those are reminders. Like, people are always like, yeah, like I'll keep work and personal separate, but they don't like remember to do that. I actually just wanted to see if you can share like how you've been, and I guess this is a conversation we should be more open about, but just talking about like burnout, how have you been managing to keep yourself from burning out, or is it just something that you're just dealing with? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like, particularly me being I've spent my career in a nonprofit, and I also have volunteered in a variety of different spaces. And I feel like if you're someone that's in nonprofit, if you're someone that tends to volunteer for things or get voluntoed to do things, we have to really watch what's on our plate right now, because burnout can be so real. And the last thing that I want to do is fill up my plate and then say, oh, I can't hold this much weight, and to have it impact other people around me. So when I talked about the way Coro has been responsive in supporting each of the members on the staff, it got brought up around what does active rest look like, and the question of what does active rest look like for you, and how can your organization support active rest for its employees. And this is a concept from Adrienne Marie Brown about sabbatical boundaries, and so for me it means that when I talk to my supervisor and she knows that I am putting in hours, when I'm putting in work at all hours of the day, because once again, the personal and professional lives is blend together. And so it means that sometimes I can't work from, let's say, 3 to 6 p.m. because I got to deal with my kids and then do dinner, or, try to help them with their bedtime routine. And then I wait for them to sleep, and they sleep kind of late. So if they don't fall asleep till 10 p.m., that means that I'm trying to stay up so I can then do work from, let's say, 10 to midnight. And that's not necessarily healthy. And we all have different ways that we like to work. But my supervisor has been very helpful in saying, do what you need to do to take care of yourself. And so that means that even though Coro has every other Friday off this summer, is that I'm trying to take at least the afternoons off on those Fridays that we don't have off. So I'm trying to do the best that I can to be my best self by maybe trying to put in a little bit more work on those 4 days, but at least I get 3 days. So then and for anyone that has kids and me who has done work in youth development, if you track a kid's behavior and their energy level from Monday through Friday, particularly now that you can't go out and let out that energy, that my kids' energy bubbles up each day of the week. So when it reaches Friday, their energy level is so high that it needs to be released somehow. And I've tried to have meetings on Fridays, and they constantly gets interrupted. And so this has been helpful for me and my family to say, like, I'm just going to try to take Fridays off right now. And to make sure that that's supported by my organization. And that's healthy for me, healthy for my family, and allows me to re-energize as I move into the following work week.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Cliff. And thank you for being part of this panel and sharing your knowledge. I'm sure this has been very relatable, even for people who don't have kids like myself. I'm a yes girl, and so good reminders to stop. It's okay. It's a different time, and to remember to put yourself first too. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Sending so much love and health to you and your community. Thank you for having me as part of this panel.
Thank you all so much for your insight and your wisdom. To our audience, if this pandemic still has you feeling lost and disoriented, I hope this conversation about how these companies have adapted to their business processes due to the pandemic helps make you feel better. We're all going through similar changes. You're not alone. We're all still trying to figure out the best way to create a new normal and continue on in the face of the most unexpected challenge.